What's up, guys? Purple Hair Guy here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. Let me know what you think. But today we're going to be doing a what is the easiest class for starters to pick in Synthetik. Awesome. Everybody loves Synthetik. It's a cool game. It looks cool. But you might be looking at it and going, I don't know. I don't know if I can start it. Well, here you go. This is how you're going to start it. You're going to choose one of the top 4 is what I'm going to recommend for you to do. But let's get into it. Okay, first, number 8th place for easiest, I would say is Assassin. It just doesn't have the survivability that you'd want from a class. This early on, of course. It does have survivability later when you can heal and get core stacks from it. But early on, the only thing that it has for newer players would be the stealth, which just lets you leave fights sometimes. It's not too good. The base dodge chance for the class is high, however. But there's just the lower base health, lower max shield. It's just not good for new players, and the class gadget is much harder to use than some other ones. All right, moving on to number 7. I'm sure no one's surprised about this one. The sniper. It pretty much relies on headshots. It doesn't rely on headshots, but headshots make the class so much better. And if you're just pretty much just running and gunning early on, you're not going to set up and do headshots, which is okay. You don't have to. That's why you don't play sniper first. You play an easier class and figure it out. It does have really high damage output, and if you can land headshots, it's a really good class. But I'd say the fire rate deficit, I think it's 10%, and also just, the close range combat non-capabilities that it has, the lack of movement options, stuff like that, is just bad for new players, and you should avoid this class until you understand what the point of it is. All right, next up. By the way, I'd like to say that these classes aren't bad in general, they're just bad for beginners. And that's why Engineer is next. Engineer is super powerful. It does have less stats, but the summons it can have are so much more powerful than any other class's summons, which is really good. The Engineer is pretty much it's one of the best classes in the game, I'd have to say, but it's really hard for newer players to pick up just because the stats are so low. And most of its abilities are semi-confusing to use. They're not super confusing, but they're up there. I just wouldn't say this is an easy class to start with. High damage, good passives. Cons, low base stats, hard to use abilities. That's pretty much it. That's why this is getting the number 6 spot. Next up, this one might come as a surprise, but Breacher. I would say Breacher isn't a great class to start with because it has pretty low survivability for starting. In general, it's very good at surviving, but when you're starting out, it's pretty hard to survive as because you're going to be dashing in and throwing your breach charges, taking a bunch of damage either from the breach charges or from enemies, and then you're just dangerously close to the rest of the enemies. And what do you do at that point? You die, pretty much. That's the disadvantage of this class. It's just how it is. I wouldn't recommend starting with it until you have a good grasp on the game because it's just a harder class to use because you're going to hurt yourself. But it does scale really well into the later game because it has bonus shotgun damage and really high movement speed and shield. But I believe the shield regen is pretty slow, so you just have to be careful with this class. All right, so that's our number 5 spot. Number 4, this one might be a little controversial, but I would say Raider is number 4 in easiness. It's not higher because of the low sustain that it has as a base kit in general. It does have super high mobility with 2 dashes, and also just general high damage output is really, really good on it. But low HP sustain, you really got to get into the thick of it to deal damage, and I wouldn't recommend playing this class as you're going to go in, take a bunch of damage, and then you're kind of screwed because you just took a bunch of damage, and you don't want to be taking damage this early on with the class. It's just not a good class for new players to pick up. But it is a really good class. None of these classes are bad. There's just some classes that you shouldn't play at the start. And Raider is kind of one of them. 4th place, easiest. I don't think this is going to come as a surprise to anybody that Demolisher is up here in the number 3 spot. Demolisher is really fun. It just goes Explodo mode everywhere. Who doesn't like exploding things? It really just does a bunch of damage. And the only downside is sometimes you're going to hit yourself with your grenades, and you also have to hit more than one enemy with a grenade. But you have a lot of room for forgiveness You're just going to shoot somebody, they're going to explode, and they're going to die. And then you're going to seismic resonator them, and they're going to die if they don't die that time. It's just an easy class to use. There's not really anything difficult about it. And I would say it's not the best class to start with, of course, because it's in the number 3 spot, but it is a really good class to start with in general. Absolutely nobody should be surprised about the top 2. Top 2 easiest classes. I'm going to put number 2 as the Riot Guard. So, the Riot Guard is number 2 because of the Viking Riot Shield starting weapon. It's just free armor. I believe you get 30 armor if you have it equipped, and 15 if it's on your back. But it does reduce your movement speed. But it also just gives you free armor. Like, who doesn't want free armor? You start with a better than base weapon, free armor, and a dash damage ability. So when you dash with Riot Guard, you deal damage, which is really good, of course. And you just get this free armor. There's no downsides to Riot Guard as a class. It is really slow because of the Viking Riot Shield, but you just put that on your back and ignore that. And every time you take damage, you get health regen and move speed regardless. So there's really no, like, blaring downsides with this class. It is a little hard to keep your health regen and movement speed active, but that's not too big of a deal. This class is insanely tanky if you have your Viking Riot Shield and you have an RV Rebuke system on. That's 20 free armor base, and the RV Rebuke system is just an item you can have. But that's 20 armor base, plus you return damage when you get shot. You're pretty much unkillable. You're not unkillable, but you're much harder to kill than any other class in the game. And on top of that, you can drop your starting pistol. Who wants their starting pistol? Ugh, disgusting. Just kidding. The starting pistol is a great weapon sometimes, but there's no point in keeping it because you have your Viking Riot Shield. That's pretty much your starting pistol. This is the only class in the game that can drop their starting pistol. And it's also our number 2 pick. So, nobody's surprised about number 1. The easiest class in the game, by far, at any level of play, is the Heavy Gunner. You press your right mouse button or whatever you have your gadget or your primary core ability, signature item, whatever it's called, bound to. And you just start shooting the LG2 Onslaught, your LMG that you start with. And it regens ammo and deals so much damage. And once you hit level 5 on Heavy Gunner, you're essentially unkillable because you get 15 armor for free, crit chance for free, and every hit gives you health and shield. It's insane. There's no downsides to this class, minus the move speed reduction. And it can carry an extra weapon. So you get your LG2 Onslaught system, you get your starting pistol. Okay, whatever. Starting pistol. No one cares about that. And then you just get 2 other weapon slots. So you don't even have to be picky with your weapon choices. This class is so easy to use. It just has inherent armor, inherent lifesteal. There's no downsides to this class that a new player would have to worry about. And on top of that, you just run charge. The dash gives you immunity and fire rate. And Heavy Gunner's dash is already slower and lasts longer, so you're immune while dashing. It's just insane. There's nothing bad about this class. Alright, and that wraps up my easiness tier list. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.